Hello everyone, today I am going to show you what the Customer Hub at DinMo is, and so the Customer Hub corresponds to a new feature which will be a real marketing cockpit directly inside DinMo. So we have introduced a new product. We have both the data activation, which is where we will create all the segments, calculated fields, activations, etc., and the Customer Hub, which will allow to have an interface dedicated to marketing teams to understand their data and above all measure their performance. We will have three main types of objects. In this Customer Hub, we will have what we call the metrics. That means that for each team, we can define KPIs that we want to track on an audience or globally on all profiles. Then we will see everything related to audiences. So this is really a bit like the equivalent of a user segment that we have activated, and the goal of the audience is to be able to add parameters to it in order to measure its performance. So we talk about control group and treatment group. That is to say, we will be able to activate or not the data to measure whether the marketing activation has an impact on performance. We will be able to track the membership of people in the audiences, etc. And we will have a notion of profile, so really a customer record. So that's basically the pitch of the Customer Hub. How does it translate on the platform? Basically, the first thing we will do is determine the data that is in this Customer Hub. Here we see that I have selected my customer model. The idea is to potentially have several Customer Hubs in the same workspace to be able to separate the different entities. I'm thinking in particular of a company that would have a French subsidiary, an English subsidiary, a Spanish subsidiary, to have a Customer Hub for French clients, a Customer Hub for English clients, a Customer Hub for Spanish clients. So it's really also data governance that we can have on this Customer Hub. The second thing we will do, from a configuration point of view, will be, in particular for the profile record, to configure precisely these profiles in DinMo. The goal is to make DinMo understand what data we have on our clients. So, is it identifiers such as an email, a last name, a first name, etc., so that DinMo can, in the long run, have an idea of how many times this identifier is represented in the base? Is it that only 90% of people have an email? For example, it is this kind of insight we will be able to have. And also, define performance attributes that we want to track over time for an individual. So typically, my churn risk, I want to be able to track it for a person over time, and overall, I want to bring it down. This schema editing overall will have an impact on this customer record that we will be able to see here and afterwards. If I click on a given person, I will have different information on this customer record. So overall, on the total overview of this customer record, I will have all the performance indicators, how many orders they have made, and it's really you who have determined it. So it can be calculated fields that have been done in the data activation part, or columns that exist in your data warehouse. In any case, it's you who have decided that these are performance attributes and that you want to track them over time in DinMo. So here, for example, the number of orders, churn risk, the 6-month LTV, etc. So this is really everything we will track over time. And if the value has changed compared to the previous day, we will mention it here. Same, the goal in the long run in DinMo is to have variations over the last day, the last 7 days, the last 30 days, etc. These are evolutions that will come quite quickly on the platform. After that, we will have activities. So here we see, overall for this person, the activities are only entries or exits, potentially, from audiences. The goal is also to have information like, this attribute has changed from this value to this value. We will also obviously see the audience information. Really, if we want to click on the audience here, it will take us to the audience record, which we will see later, and all the other attributes that exist for this person. So here I have all the information on this person, including the audience history, in which audience they have been, from which audience they have left, and the entry-exit status. So this is really a customer record that you can configure as much as you want to have as much information as possible about your customers. After that, there are the metrics, which are really KPIs that we will measure at the scale of an audience. So an audience can be either all the profiles as I have selected here, or all the other audiences you have declared in your Customer Hub. The idea is to have either snapshots or trends. In this case, for one day, we always have a snapshot, and it's you who calculate your metric, or rather define it. Then I will have the evolution of these snapshots, or these trends, over 7 days, 30 days, 6 months. For example, if I click on 6 months here, I will see that some KPIs have always been configured in snapshot, and some KPIs that have been configured in trend. And so here I have the temporal evolution, not over 6 months, because I have historical data only since July 18 on my demo account. But the idea is that if I click on 6 months, I will have 6 months of history. If I want to create a new metric, it's very simple. I will simply click on Create a new metric. I must say on which related model I can aggregate data. So here in this case, I only have events on channels. So did the person click, open an email, etc., or transactions, so I can aggregate on a transaction. I choose the field that I will aggregate, for example, the total quantity of products that a person would have purchased, and then I will sum it to have, for a given audience or for my entire base, how many products have been purchased. We're not talking about the number of orders, we're really talking about the number of products. And I choose the format here, it will be a number, so number of products purchased. Then I can choose to track it either in snapshot or in trend to have the temporal evolution. Once I have created the metrics, it really has value for the audiences. I will click on the Audience tab, and there it will show me all the audiences that I have already declared in my workspace. So I see that I have declared 7, corresponding to a total of 47,000 profiles, and that they are sent to 65 destinations for a total of 65 activations. If I click on a given audience, I will have different information on this audience. Here I will have overall the snapshots. So the idea is to have the metrics that I have decided to track on this audience. I will have them at the level of their overview. For example, all the activations of this audience. So this segment of inactive clients is sent to all these destinations, and the activations have a status, most of the time active, but it can also be a fail. So these are really the basic snapshots. We see that here I'm not tracking trends. Otherwise, I could also have the trends over the last X days. There's also an analysis tab that allows us to have breakdowns or to look at overlap with different audiences. So breakdown means I can see, for example, for a given field, how it is distributed in this audience. Here, if I want the preference channel, I can see the distribution of this preference channel within the audience by selecting it here. There you go. So after that, I see that here in my audience, I have overall 78% of people who have not filled in their preference channel, 8%, etc. That's really the idea. I also have the overlap, as we said, to see if an audience is included in another, for example, which is going to be really interesting at the audience level. On the settings side, we can do different things. The first thing that is really important is the control groups. For the control group, basically, I will define whether to activate it or not. And if I activate it, I say I want a certain percentage of my audience to correspond to the treatment group, which will be sent to destinations. If I activate this audience here at 80%, the other 19% I do not want DinMo to send to the destination, Klaviyo, Google, Meta, etc., because I want to check that, by sending this audience to my marketing destination, it has a business impact thanks to the metrics I'm tracking. So here I have activated it, and I have also activated the tracking of audience memberships, so I will know when a person leaves or enters this audience. And I have chosen for this given audience to track a few metrics. Total revenue, number of new orders, and average basket size. And overall, this will allow me to have an experiment tab that will show the trends of my control group versus my treatment group for these metrics. And typically, on total revenue, I see that my treatment group is much higher than my adjusted control group. And so that means my test is conclusive. There you go, overall for the Customer Hub. I hope this is clear.